Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Celine and today I would like to apologize first of all for having been absent for so long. I had surgery and I thought no problem, I can do my videos anyway. But no, it was not possible. I really needed the time to recover. I'm improvising a little bit today and probably in my next videos as well because my apartment looks more like a nursery and I would like to spare you the mess. So doesn't matter, we can go on like this anyhow. I would like to share with you today a drawing that was quite surprising for me because it was the first time I did that. A consultant came to me with a question. She was interested in numerology and found out, calculated her first names because she has two first names, like a double name. And she found out over the internet what numbers they represented and wanted to know if the tarot could as well give her some answers to that. So I thought, well, why not? Let's try. That was the first time I did that. I did it for myself afterwards, and it was as impressive as hers. But yeah, today I would like to share this drawing I did. So how does that work? Well, she went online and, you just Google it and you can find it. There is a grid that you can use. You have a letter corresponding to a number, and then you just calculate your names like that. She has two first names. So her first name resulted in being a 5. Her second first name resulted to be a 10. And then she did the sum of the two names. So 5 plus 10 was 15. And then 15 again reduced would be 1 plus 5, and that's a 6. So in total we had 4 cards. 5 is the Pope, 10 is the Wheel of Fortune, 15 is the Devil, and 6 is the Lovers. So she was very scared because she saw the devil, she saw the wheel, usually not so positive cards. And so she was very afraid. And so I said, well, what is your question really? Because she said, the mission of my soul and the charge, the expectations and the transgenerational charge that my family put in me, choosing those names. And I said, well, there are 2 questions, it's difficult. We need to focus. We need to, the more precise the question is, the more precise the answer is as well. But we couldn't really choose. So we thought, well, let's do both. Why not? So I did that twice, and I'm going to present to you today what the results were, and they were quite impressive. Now we started with her mission first because it was more positive, I thought. And there was something interesting that struck me straight away. You have 3 out of 4 cards that talk about terminating cycles, liberation from something, leaving something behind to go towards something new. I thought that was one energy really represented by those 3 cards. But well, we went then into details. So first of all, the Pope. The Pope is a spiritual being. He has a direct connection with above, and he is a teacher. He is there and he preaches, and there are people listening to him. Now, funnily though, he's not looking at them. So he's not expecting any applause. He's not expecting actually to teach. He's just teaching by the way he lives. So for me, there was a sign that she had to go a spiritual path, that she had to be an example for people by the way she lives, rather than by what she says. So not preaching, but just, being herself and living a different way of life. There is something different in her compared, with the other cards as well. There is terminating cycles, there is liberation, there is something new in there. So that is part of it as well. So that was the idea of being different, and this way of being different would be an example for others. The second card was the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune is a heavy card. It talks about, you know, the experiences that you go on and on and on in your life. Quite tiring as well. I always compare that to a washing machine. You know, you turn, you turn, you turn, you turn, and at the end you're exhausted. And I don't know if it was her being exhausted from a certain type of life, or if it was just over generations, an exhaustion of a certain way of thinking, way of living. But there was definitely the idea of this has to stop. And the Wheel of Fortune has a handle on the side, and you know, the question is the card next to it, what is the card that would stop that wheel? And she had the Devil. The Devil represents your instinctive needs. So obviously, most of the time, you know, we are asked to repress those instinctive needs. Of course, I cannot just say, I want some sex and I just grab the next person. You know, you cannot, obviously. Or I want to hit on my child. That's the instinctive need I have, but I can't do that. So we see that as a very negative thing. And it is as well most of the time, but it can also mean, you know, sometimes you have to follow your guts. You have to follow those instincts. And here that's the case, because it is the thing that will stop that wheel from turning. So for me, it was a sign that she had to break those chains, to stop to be a slave of herself and of that. I'm not supposed to do that. I cannot do that. I am not allowed to. That's not conventional. That's not allowed in my family or in society. And in turn, she would accept these instincts, and she would have to follow what she really desires. She said that at some point she was going to die, maybe not literally, but inside, because the way that she was brought up was impossible for her to continue. So she had to break with that. And of course it means rejection from your family, because you are leaving that system. You're not complying with the rules of our family or of the society. A system can be a group of people as well. So I don't know, for example, all Catholics of my town, or it can be, I don't know, the world of the teachers, you know, whatever, some group of people that share certain things together. And that was again confirmed with the Lovers. The Lovers, as we saw several times, is not about love. It's about follow your heart to take a different path. He is torn between the old structure, that old woman, or the young woman, some new structures, and he is hesitating. He doesn't really know what way to go, but basically the message of the card is go new path, take new paths, move on. The old doesn't serve you any longer. So there was kind of a golden line throughout those four cards that were very interesting. And yeah, so I understood a little bit better once we went into the charge that the family put on her using those names for her. And but it was already very interesting, and she confirmed that. She confirmed that she had done that she is probably still in some aspects caught in it, but that she's working on it. Obviously, she is a spiritual person. That's also the reason why she went on the internet looking for the mission of her soul, and she went looking for numerology, and she called me for, you know, not you have to be a little bit spiritual to wanting to go towards these things. But yeah, so and she is a very different person from the rest of her family. She's a very different person. I would say also she did things in the 80s, 90s that were still not normal. You know, it's like being gay in the 80s. It was still something not so accepted. So that was this kind of thing. She was different. She went another path than the generations before her. Her generations, but generations in general. So there was also a cultural thing in there. So now we always had a look at the second question. I'm sorry, it's going to be quite a long video, but basically there are two drawings in one. So that's why I'm sorry. But I hope it is interesting anyway. So let's make it quick. All the negative sides. If you have a look at the Pope, we're talking about dogmas, about institution, about tradition. And that was kind of what popped into my mind. So we talked about the 50s and we talked about that community and those traditions. So that's kind of the Pope. So there's kind of a control. There is the idea of control. I'm controlling you. The Pope controls. You know, in the Inquisition, for instance, the church controlled, you know, don't do anything that goes out of the tradition. It's everything is judged. Basically, it is judged. It is it will be punished as well. So that's the Pope. In his negative side. And funnily, what jumped into my mind as well was the Pope is not looking at the disciples. So that kind of, I don't know why it popped into my head. That's what happens with Tarot. I thought he doesn't care. He doesn't really care. These traditions are not put in place to protect the other. They're not there, you know, don't wear a dress. It's not because I'm afraid that someone would hit on you, rape you. I don't know. It's not a question of security. It is a question of just tradition. What would people say if my daughter does this or that? That was the actual reason for it. So that was quite interesting. So there's control there. There is kind of enslavery as well through rules. Now the Wheel of Fortune, again, well, all those traditions and all those cycles repeating itself. Probably that's why, you know, she got those names as well. But her mission was to stop with that. But it was the interesting thing of the Wheel of Fortune is that you have that Sphinx on top, and the wheel is actually based on water. So it is not stable. And you have that Sphinx on top that tries to keep control, you know, not to change anything. Don't dare changing anything. This wheel has to stay in place, but it is so unstable. If you have a look, the wheel is not actually round. It has kind of like a bump on the side. It is not a perfect wheel. They're not. It's not something that would last for long. It is already condemned to be over at some point. So you have again the control and what we used to do, you know, traditions. And then we have the devil, and the devil again as a Pope talk of imposing, of control. The Pope, for instance, the devil, for instance, would be a narcissist, someone who has control on you by his instincts, by his way of being, by his need, his instinct to control. So that's the negative side of the devil. So again, we had that there is enslavery, enchaining someone, and you have that control. And the devil is actually not that big. It's just that big because it is on a pedestal. So but if you take that pedestal away, then he's actually smaller. He's not as small as the two creatures, but he's still not as big as he seems. So that's also kind of a way putting oneself on a pedestal, or putting the rules and the traditions and everything higher, so that, you know, they're more imposing, but actually they are not that important. And also it talks about that guilt, that's, you know, you would hate yourself if you break with that. So there was that negative aspect of that card. And then again, with the Lovers, you have that too. You have that old woman holding him back. You can also, you know, the hand on the shoulder is support, but it can also mean, no, you don't move away. So there's control again. And I kind of had the impression, I said, they didn't do all that because they really believed in it. It's just the only thing that they knew. And they had to flee at some point in their lives because that community was expelled from that country. And maybe that was the reason. Maybe it was because they you know, everything broke down. Their entire life, their home was burned down. And this was the only thing stable, and they cling to that. They held on to that, and so it was so important to maintain that. That was a bit the impression that I had, and with the conversation that we had. And she was born to break with that, to break with that tradition. I don't think she was the only one. Well, because also generations, you know, the new generations were different, and but it was very difficult for her, and it was, I think it still is kind of the mission, and she continues, you know. She's a very avant-gardist, do you say that? Like a pioneer in quite a lot of things. She lives a very different life. She's a very independent woman. She lives in a country where women are kind of submissive as well. So maybe this is, you know, the teaching that she has to give, just by being herself, just living the experiences that have taught her so much during these years, and now she's just living them. And that might be an example for these women in that other country. So I don't know. I don't have the answers, but that was the interesting thing. I tried to make it short. So I think I made my point, and I think it was quite interesting. It was so interesting that I did the same for myself. I thought, well, what is my mission? And I was quite astonished by what came out. So very interesting, and I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you wish to go on Google and calculate your name as well and have a look at the tarot. Very welcome to comment and to send me some message. That would be interesting to have a look at. I wish you well, and I see you soon in the next video. Bye bye.